My husband gave you what you deserve, my daughter said when I sat down at the table with my arm broken. The cast was still damp. I could feel its weight pulling my shoulder down, the aching pain climbing up to my neck. I had fallen down the basement stairs 3 hours ago. Or at least that was what I was supposed to believe. She didn't look away when she spoke. My own daughter, the girl I had held in my arms through feverish nights, was there staring at me with a coldness I had never seen before. Her husband, seated beside her, smiled. It wasn't a broad smile. It was something small, almost imperceptible, but loaded with a silent satisfaction that made my stomach turn. "Did you come here just to say that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "We came to see how you are," she replied, cutting a piece of the pie I had made the night before. "After all, accidents happen, don't they?" The word accidents echoed in my head. I was 63. I had spent 30 of those years working as an investigator for the Coast Guard. I learned to read people, to spot inconsistencies, to sense when someone was lying. And in that moment, looking at my daughter and her husband, I knew that fall had not been an accident. It all began 3 weeks ago. They showed up at my door unannounced, carrying suitcases and wide smiles. "We want to spend some time with you, Dad," she said. "It's been so long since we've really seen each other." I should have been suspicious right then. My daughter was never one for spontaneous visits. But I had been alone since my wife died 5 years ago, and the idea of company felt good. During the first days, everything seemed normal. Family dinners, conversations about the past, laughter. But then I began to notice small things. Her husband, who had always been polite but distant, started asking questions about my retirement, about my savings, about my life insurance. "It's important to plan for the future," he would say, with that tone of someone trying to seem helpful. My daughter changed too. She began insisting that I sign papers. "It's just to update your bank information, Dad. In case something happens to you, I need access to help you." I signed some documents without thinking much. After all, she was my daughter. Why would I suspect her? But then things got strange. I started feeling inexplicable dizziness. My blood pressure would rise for no reason. One night, I woke in the middle of the night with my heart racing, sweating, unable to breathe properly. I went to the doctor. He said it was stress, maybe anxiety. Prescribed some pills and told me to rest. Only I wasn't stressed. Not before they arrived. It was on the 10th day of their visit that I really started paying attention. I was in the living room, pretending to read the paper, when I heard whispers from the kitchen. They didn't know I was there. "How much longer is it going to take?" Her husband's voice was low but audible. "He's more resilient than I thought." "Be patient," my daughter replied. "We can't raise suspicion." My blood turned to ice. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. But my instinct screamed that something was wrong. I began to watch everything. The medicines they gave me to help with my blood pressure. The food my daughter personally prepared. The accidents that began to happen more frequently, a loose rug here, oil spilled on the floor there. And then came the stairs. I was going down to the basement to fetch a bottle of wine when I felt my foot slip. I tried to grab the handrail, but it gave way as if it had been loosened on purpose. I tumbled down 6 steps before hitting the concrete floor. The pain in my arm was instant and unbearable. I heard footsteps running down the stairs. They came to help me, but not before I saw her husband looking at the handrail with an expression that seemed disappointed. At the hospital, the doctor said I was lucky to be alive. "A fall like that could have been fatal," he remarked as he was putting a cast on my arm. I looked at my daughter, expecting to see concern. But what I saw was impatience. Now, sitting at my own kitchen table, hearing those words come out of her mouth, I finally understood everything. They weren't there to visit me. They were there to kill me. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, looking her straight in the eyes. She stopped chewing. For a second, I thought I saw a flash of guilt. But it passed quickly. "Doing what, Dad?" "I'm just worried about you. These falls, these accidents. Maybe you shouldn't live alone anymore." "Maybe I shouldn't live," I corrected. "Is that what you mean?" Her husband shifted in his chair, uncomfortable. My daughter laughed, but it was a forced, lifeless laugh. "You're being dramatic. It must be the medication." Medication they had been giving me. Medication I had never taken before they showed up. I said nothing more. I just sat there watching. Over the years I learned that sometimes silence reveals more than any question. And in that silence, I saw everything. The way he touched her hand under the table. The look they exchanged when they thought I wasn't paying attention. The barely concealed urgency. They needed me dead. And they needed it to look natural. But they made one mistake. A grave mistake. They underestimated who I was. Underestimated what I knew how to do. 4 decades I pursued smugglers, investigated fraud, dismantled elaborate schemes. And now, even hurt, even betrayed by my own daughter, I was still that man. That night, after they went up to the guest room, I went down to the basement again. It took longer with a broken arm, but I managed. I inspected the handrail. The marks were clear. Someone had loosened the screws on purpose. I went back up and checked the medications they were giving me. I looked up the names on the internet. They weren't for blood pressure. They were meant to induce cardiac arrhythmia. They were poisoning me slowly, waiting for my heart to fail. And when that didn't work quickly enough, they tried the stairs. I sat in the living room chair, alone in the dark, and a cold rage began to grow inside me. It wasn't explosive anger. It was calculated. Rational. The same I used when building cases against criminals who thought they were too clever to be caught. My daughter was right about one thing. Accidents happen. But so do investigations. Evidence happens. Justice happens. And I was going to make sure all of that happened. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Because what's coming next will show that sometimes the hunter becomes the prey. I had a plan. And this time, the accident would be theirs. The next morning, I woke up before they did. My arm throbbed, but the pain was secondary now. Something bigger occupied my mind. I made coffee as I always did, set the table, acted as if nothing had happened. When they came down for breakfast, I greeted them both with a smile. "Did you sleep well?" I asked. My daughter looked surprised at my friendly tone. "Yes, Dad. And you? How's your arm?" "It hurts, but I'll survive." I let the last word linger in the air a second longer than it should have. Her husband watched me with those calculating eyes. He was a man of ordinary appearance. Brown hair, average height, well-tailored suits. The kind of person who goes unnoticed in a crowd. But I had learned that the worst predators are exactly the ones who draw no attention. During breakfast, they returned to talking about my future. "We were thinking that maybe it's time you consider a retirement home," he suggested, spreading butter on his bread with precise movements. "A place where you have assistance all the time." "Assistance for what?" I replied. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." "But the accidents, Dad," my daughter intervened, with that soft voice she used when she wanted to convince me of something. "You're getting older. It's natural to need help." "I'm 63, not 90. I drank my coffee slowly. "Besides, these accidents are strange. I never had a problem with those stairs before." I saw the exchange of glances between them. Quick, almost imperceptible. "Old houses have their problems," he said. "Wood rots, screws rust. It's dangerous." "Interesting that you mention the screws." I let the sentence hang, watching his reaction. Nothing. Just a polite smile. He was good. Very good. After breakfast, they went out shopping. As soon as the car turned the corner, I went straight to the office. I turned on my computer and started digging. First, I opened my bank account. What I saw made my blood run cold. Transfers. 5 of them, over the last 2 weeks, to an account I didn't recognize. $10,000 each. $50,000 in total. I clicked on the details. The transfers had my digital signature, but I had never authorized any of them. Then I looked for the documents I had signed. I found scanned copies in my email, in a folder I didn't remember creating. I read every line with growing attention. One was a power of attorney giving my daughter full control over my finances in case of mental or physical incapacity. Another was an update to my life insurance, increasing the amount to $500,000. And the beneficiary was her. $500,000. I felt nauseous. Not because of the amount, but because of what it represented. The price my own daughter had placed on my life. I kept looking. I found records of recent searches on the shared computer they used. How to induce natural heart attack, medications that cause arrhythmia without leaving traces, how long before death looks accidental. They hadn't even bothered to delete the history. I printed everything. Every document, every transfer, every suspicious search. I stored the pages in a folder and hid it in the back of my bedroom closet, behind old shoeboxes. Not the most creative hiding place, but it would do for now. When they came back from shopping, I was in the living room watching TV, my broken arm resting on a pillow. They came in carrying bags, acting like the perfect couple visiting their beloved father. "We bought ingredients to make your favorite dinner tonight," my daughter announced, a little too cheerfully. "Remember that roast Mom used to make? I'm going to try to recreate it." "How kind of you," I replied. But inside, my mind was working. They were going to cook for me. They would have total control over what I ate. That afternoon, while they prepared dinner, I pretended to nap on the couch. But I was listening. Always listening. "We can't wait any longer," his voice came low from the kitchen. "Every day that passes is a risk." "I know, but after the stairs, anything else will look suspicious." My daughter sounded tense. "That's why it has to look natural. His heart is already weak from the medication. He just needs one final push. And if it doesn't work, it will work. Trust me." I opened my eyes slightly, just enough to see through my almost closed eyelids. He was mixing something in a glass. Something that wasn't seasoning. When they called me for dinner, I sat at the table with my stomach twisting. Not from fear, but from a deep sadness that began to consume me. I looked at my daughter serving the roast, smiling, acting as if everything was normal. How had it come to this? Where had I gone wrong as a father? "It's great," I lied after the first bite. I ate slowly, pushing the food around the plate. I drank only a sip of the water he had personally served me. When they weren't looking, I poured the rest into the plant pot beside the table. After dinner, I pretended to feel unwell. It wasn't hard to act. "I think I'm tired," I murmured. "I'll go up early tonight." "Do you want me to help you, Dad?" my daughter asked, but there was something in her eyes. Expectation. "No need. I can make it up myself." In my room, I locked the door and waited. An hour passed. 2. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Light, cautious. The doorknob turned slowly. Someone tried to open it. When they realized it was locked, the footsteps faded away. They had come to check if I was dead. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding heavily. Not from fear, but from determination. I picked up my phone and started making calls. The first was to an old Coast Guard colleague, retired like me but still with connections. I explained the situation in general terms, without going into detail. He gave me the contact of a lawyer specializing in financial fraud. I called her the next morning, while they were still asleep. Her name was Diane Foster, and her voice over the phone was firm and confident. I told her everything. The transfers, the insurance, the medication, the stairs, the conversations I'd overheard. "Do you have proof?" she asked. "I have documents, records, recordings." I had started recording their conversations on my phone, leaving the device running in strategic spots around the house. "Then we have a case. But you need to get out of that house immediately. Your life is in real danger." "Not yet," I replied. "I need more proof. Irrefutable proof." "You're playing a dangerous game." "I've spent my life playing dangerous games." I hung up before she could argue. In the following days, I continued my silent investigation. I discovered that my daughter's husband had debts. A lot of debts. Gambling, mostly. He owed more than $200,000 to people who don't accept excuses. My daughter probably didn't even know that when she married him. But now she was in it up to her neck. They needed that insurance money. It wasn't simple greed. It was desperation. And desperate people are the most dangerous. One night, while we ate dinner in tense silence, my daughter finally broke. "Dad, I need to tell you something." My heart raced. Would it be a confession? "We're having financial problems. Serious ones. I didn't want to worry you, but We need help. I looked at her, into the eyes that were just like my wife's, and saw something I hadn't seen before. Genuine fear. How much do you need? I asked, already knowing the answer. A lot. More than you can lend. She looked away. That's why we thought that maybe, if something happened to you, the insurance. So that was it. She was admitting it, but in a way that tried to sound less monstrous. As if she were just being practical about my inevitable death. And you think you'll get away with this? I asked calmly. Her husband stood up from his chair, his face finally showing the mask falling off. Old men die all the time. No one's going to question it. I will, I replied. He laughed. A cold, humorless sound. And what are you going to do? Call the police? With what proof? You're paranoid, on medication, having accidents. Anything you say will sound like senile delusion. He was right. Or at least he thought he was. But I had something they didn't expect. I had time. I had experience. And I had enough anger to keep me lucid and focused. Get out of my house, I said, standing from the table. Now. They looked at each other. For a moment, I thought they would refuse. But my daughter grabbed her purse, eyes brimming with tears, and walked toward the door. Her husband didn't move right away. He stood there, staring at me, as if calculating something. Then, finally, he followed my daughter. This isn't over, he said before leaving. I know, I replied. Because he was right. It wasn't over. It was only beginning. They left, but I knew they would come back. Desperate people don't give up easily. Especially when $500,000 is at stake. That same night, I called Diane Foster again. This time, I was ready to follow her advice. I need to get out of here, I admitted. But I need to do it in a way they won't notice. Do you have somewhere to go? My brother lives in Charleston. He hasn't spoken to my daughter in years. She won't even think to look there. Great. Go early tomorrow. And have cameras installed in the house before you leave. Cameras. I hadn't thought of that. Where can I get those quickly? I'll send a technician tomorrow morning, before dawn. He installs discreet equipment. If they come back, we'll have everything recorded. I stayed up all night, organizing documents, packing essentials. My broken arm made everything harder, but adrenaline made up for the pain. At 5 a.m, the technician arrived. A young, efficient man who worked in absolute silence. He installed 5 tiny cameras. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one in my bedroom, one in the office, and one at the entrance. Everything goes to the cloud automatically, he explained. You can access it from anywhere. And the lawyer has access too. At 7 a.m, I was on the road. I drove with one hand, my broken arm resting on my lap, fighting the urge to look in the rearview mirror every minute. The house that had been my home for 40 years vanished on the horizon. And with it, the illusion that I still had a family. My brother Thomas took me in without asking questions. He was 4 years younger, with a calmer way of living. He had distanced himself from the family after a disagreement with my daughter years ago. At the time, I thought he was being dramatic. Now I understood that he had seen something I was blind to. How long will you stay? He asked as he helped me carry the bags upstairs. I don't know. A few days. Maybe weeks. She did something, didn't she? He knew his niece better than I realized. Tried to kill me. Thomas stopped halfway up the stairs, turned, and looked me in the eye. Are you serious? Completely. He nodded slowly, as if something finally made sense. I always knew there was something off about her. The way she looked at things, always calculating, always measuring value. But you never wanted to see. He was right. I had been blind. Blind from paternal love, from guilt, from the hope that she was different from what she really was. In the guest room, I set up my laptop and accessed the cameras. The house was empty and silent. For 2 days, nothing happened. I began to wonder if I'd overreacted, if maybe they really had given up. Then, on the third night, at 2 a.m, the entrance camera picked up movement. 2 figures. Her and him. They entered through the front door using the key I had forgotten to ask for back. My heart raced as I watched them cross the living room toward my bedroom. "He's not here," I heard my daughter say on the audio recording. "Where the hell did he go?" "Calm down. Maybe he's at the hospital. He was unwell after dinner." They ransacked the room. Opened drawers, rummaged through the closet. She found the folder I had hidden. I saw on the video when she opened and read the documents. Her face went pale. "He knows," she whispered. "He knows everything." Her husband snatched the folder from her hand. He read quickly, and for the first time, I saw real panic in him. "We need those documents. If he goes to the police with this, we're finished." "Where is he? We need to find him." "I'll call the hospitals. You look for clues here about where he might have gone." I watched as they destroyed my house searching for information. They broke drawers, threw books on the floor, overturned every corner. Part of me felt anger. Another part felt a cold satisfaction. Each act of theirs was more proof. More evidence. "We have to finish this soon," her husband said, his face tense and sweaty. "The people I owe won't wait any longer. They set a deadline until the end of the month." "And what happens if we don't pay?" He didn't answer. But the silence said it all. They left without finding anything. But they left something behind. In the kitchen, the camera recorded him putting something into the water filter. I enlarged the image. It was a small vial. I tried to read the label, but it was too far from the camera. I sent the video to Diane immediately. She replied within minutes. "That's premeditated attempted homicide. Enough for a criminal complaint. I'll send it to the police now." "Wait," I answered. "Not yet." "Why?" "You have enough evidence." "Because I want to catch them in the act. I want there to be no chance of their escape. No excuse, no loophole." There was something else too. Something I wouldn't admit even to myself. I wanted to see how far they'd go. I wanted to fully understand what my daughter had become. Diane didn't like it, but she agreed to wait. "You have 1 week. After that, I'll go to the police with or without your permission." In the following days, I continued monitoring the house through the cameras. They returned 2 more times, always at night. On the second visit, they installed something on the car that was in my garage. A device on the brakes. If I drove that car, the brakes would fail on the first steep descent. On the third visit, I heard the conversation that changed everything. "I found where he is," her husband said. "Charleston. At his brother's house." My blood ran cold. How did he find out? I tracked his phone. The idiot left location on. Of course. My phone. How stupid I had been. "So what do we do?" my daughter asked, and for the first time I heard real hesitation in her voice. "Do we go there?" "No. That would be too suspicious. But I know someone who can solve our problem. It will cost, but it will look like a robbery gone wrong. Natural. Someone. He was going to hire a killer." My daughter was silent for a long moment. Then, so low I almost didn't catch it on the audio, she said, "Are you sure there isn't another way? Do you want to stay alive? Because if I don't pay what I owe, both of us end up dead." "So yes, I'm sure." She nodded. My own daughter nodded to the idea of having me killed. I called Diane immediately and told her everything. "Now go to the police," I demanded. "Now. I'm calling." But I knew the police would take time. Process, bureaucracy, warrants. And I didn't have time. If he really was hiring someone, that someone could show up at any moment. Thomas came into the room and saw my expression. "What happened?" "They're going to send someone to kill me. Someone professional." "Then let's get out of here. Now." "No." My mind was already working, planning. If we run, they'll keep trying. I need to finish this once and for all. How? By letting them think they succeeded. The idea was risky. Insane, even. But it was the only way to ensure they were caught without a shadow of a doubt. I called Diane again. "I need your help with something." "And the police." "What are you planning?" I explained. She was silent so long I thought I'd lost the call. Then, "This can go very wrong." "I know. But it's the only way." "Let me talk to the detective." I'll call back. An hour later, she returned the call. They agreed. But you must follow exactly what they tell you. One mistake and you're really dead. Understood. And one condition. You wear a bulletproof vest the whole time. No exceptions. Done. I hung up and looked out the window at the quiet street in Charleston. Somewhere out there, someone was being hired to kill me. And I was about to let it happen. But this time, I would be ready. Because the difference between a hunter and prey is not strength. It's knowing when to become the bait. Thomas brought me a coffee and sat beside me. Are you sure about this? No, I admitted. But I have no choice. We always have a choice. Not when your daughter wants to see you dead. The words came out more bitter than I intended. I have to do this. Not just for me. For anyone else she might hurt in the future. He put his hand on my good shoulder. Then let's finish it. I spent the rest of the day preparing. The police arrived discreetly, undercover, installing additional equipment. Directional microphones, high-definition cameras, trackers. They turned my brother's house into a trap. And now, all I had to do was wait for the killer to arrive. And pray the plan worked. The killer arrived on a Thursday, 3 days later. I was in the living room, pretending to read, when Detective Davis discreetly tapped in my earpiece. We have movement. Man alone, walking down the street. Checking house numbers. That's him. My heart raced, but I kept my face neutral. The bulletproof vest weighed under my shirt. Thomas was upstairs, safe, with 2 officers. The house was surrounded by undercover agents. Still, my entire body was tense. Remember, Davis's voice came low in my ear. Let him in. Let him talk. We need the full confession before we act. I took a deep breath. Through the curtain, I saw the silhouette of a man approaching the door. Tall, broad shoulders, confident stride. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like any salesman. The doorbell rang. I stood slowly, my broken arm still in the cast serving as the perfect part of my supposed vulnerability. I opened the door. Can I help you? I asked. He smiled. A professional, practiced smile. Hello. I'm looking for Richard Thompson. My name. He knew my name. That's me. Great. May I come in? I have a business proposal to discuss with you. Every fiber of my being screamed to slam the door in his face. But I opened more, giving him room to enter. Of course. Come in. He entered, eyes quickly scanning the room. Looking for others, for threats, for escape routes. Professional training. He had done this before. Nice house, he commented, sitting on the sofa uninvited. Your brother has good taste. How do you know this is my brother's house? Did my research. He crossed his legs, completely relaxed. You know how it is. Business requires preparation. What kind of business? He tilted his head, studying my face. Let's stop pretending, Mr. Thompson. You know why I'm here. I don't, actually. Your daughter and her husband hired me. They wanted something discreet, something that would look natural. A robbery gone wrong, maybe. Or an accident with the heart medication you take. My blood ran cold. He was being completely straightforward. No beating around the bush, no subtext. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a better proposal. He leaned forward. They paid me $15,000 up front. Another 15 when the job was done. But look, I discovered some interesting things while doing my research. Like what? Like the fact that you're a former investigator. Like the fact that you installed cameras in your house. Like the fact that you probably already know everything your dear family is planning. He knew. He knew everything. So here's my proposal, he continued. You pay me $50,000, I pretend I did the job disappear, and you use this however you want against them. I walk away with more money, you stay alive, and those 2 idiots pay for what they tried to do. It was a twist I didn't expect. The hired killer coming to kill me was offering an alliance. And if I don't accept? I asked, keeping my voice firm. He shrugged. Then I fulfill the contract. Nothing personal, just business. But honestly, I'd rather not kill a Coast Guard veteran. I have my principles. Principles, I repeated. You're a hitman. I work in the business of permanent solutions for human problems. And usually, my targets deserve it. Scammers, traffickers, abusers, bad people. You? You're just an old man being robbed by his own family. That doesn't sit right with me. Then why did you take the job? Because 15,000 in my pocket felt good. But 50,000 feels even better. I stayed silent, processing. In my ear, Davis was whispering urgently. Keep him talking about who hired him. We need this recorded. How do I know you won't just take the money and kill me anyway? I asked. You don't. But consider this, if I wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead. I came in easily. You're alone, vulnerable, with a broken arm. It would have been quick. But I'm talking to you because I prefer the more profitable route. Tell me about who hired you. Details. He smiled, as if he knew exactly what I was doing. Your daughter's husband. Patrick Donovan. We met at a bar in Jacksonville 3 days ago. He was desperate, sweating, talking too fast. Said he needed someone eliminated, that he had dangerous people chasing debts, time was running out. And my daughter? She was there. Didn't say much, but agreed to everything. Signed the contract too. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Actually, I have it here. Want to see? He handed me the document. I took it with a trembling hand. It was a handwritten contract, bizarrely formal for an assassination agreement. And there it was, the signatures of Patrick and my daughter. Jennifer. Her name written in the handwriting I had known since she learned to write as a child. Keep this, he said. My gift. Concrete proof. Why are you doing this? I told you. Principles. And profit. Mostly profit. He stood. So we have a deal? 50,000 and I disappear from your life forever. And if I say the police are listening to this entire conversation? He froze. For a second, real fear crossed his face. Then slowly, he looked around the corners of the room, at the windows. You're bluffing. I'm not. The front door burst open. 4 officers entered, guns drawn. Hands on your head. On the floor. Now. The killer didn't resist. He simply laughed, a low, resigned sound, and knelt with his hands on the back of his head. Clever, he said, looking at me. Very clever. Your old man still has tricks. As they handcuffed him, Davis came through the kitchen door. We have everything recorded. Full confession, including the names of the contractors and documentary evidence. Good work, Mr. Thompson. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Will he cooperate? I asked, pointing to the killer being taken away. He already offered to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence, Davis replied. He'll hand over your contractors on a silver platter. When will they be arrested? Now. We already have a team heading to their house. My daughter. They were going to arrest my daughter. I should have felt victory, but all I felt was a deep, painful emptiness. Thomas came down the stairs, pale. Is it over? Not yet, I replied. Davis looked confused. What do you mean not yet? We have everything we need. I want to be there. When they arrest them. I want to look her in the eyes. That's not protocol. I don't care about protocol. She tried to kill me. I have the right to be there. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But you stay in the car. Just watch. No interference. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in the back seat of an unmarked police car, parked in front of my daughter's house. It was a beautiful house in a decent neighborhood. Well-kept lawn, flowers in the windows. The perfect image of a happy home. I saw when the team knocked on the door. I saw Patrick open it, confused at first, then terrified when he realized what was happening. He tried to close the door, but the officers were faster. They pushed him against the wall, handcuffs snapping around his wrists. Then my daughter appeared. Jennifer. My girl. She saw her husband being handcuffed and started screaming. Then she saw the officers with their badges, the cars in the street, and the scream died in her throat. Her eyes scanned the street and found mine through the car window. For a long moment, we just stared at each other. She through tears, me through 40 years of shattered memories. I saw when realization hit her. I saw when she understood she had lost. That the father she underestimated had won. She didn't scream. Didn't try to run. She just stood there as the female officer approached with the handcuffs. Before they were closed, my daughter moved her lips. Silent, but I read it perfectly. "I'm sorry, Dad." I didn't respond. I just watched as they put her in the police car, as Patrick yelled about lawyers and rights, as curious neighbors came out of their houses to watch the show. Davis got into the car. "We need a formal statement. Are you able?" "I am." At the station, I spent 3 hours recounting everything. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every moment of betrayal. I signed documents, provided the camera recordings, handed over the papers I had collected. When I finished, it was night. Davis offered me a ride, but I refused. I needed to walk, needed to process everything. I walked the streets of Charleston alone, my broken arm weighing me down, but my heart somehow lighter. I had survived. I had won. I had ensured justice was done. But victory tasted like ashes in my mouth. Because in the end, what had I really gained? My daughter was going to prison. My family was destroyed. And I was lonelier than ever. There was only one thing left to do now. Move forward. Somehow. 6 months later, I sat in the same chair in the living room where it all began. My arm had fully healed. The cast had been off for months, but I still felt occasional stiffness when the weather changed, a physical reminder of everything that had happened. The house was silent. Empty in a way it never had been before. Even after my wife died, there were still echoes of her in every corner, warm memories that filled the space. But now, after everything, the house felt like nothing more than a pile of walls and furniture. The trial had ended the previous week. Patrick was sentenced to 25 years for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted homicide, fraud, and extortion. The hitman he hired, a man named Derek Mills, got 15 years after fully cooperating with the prosecution. His testimony had been devastating, detailing every conversation, every payment, every sordid plan. And my daughter, Jennifer, received 18 years. I was in the courtroom when the sentence was read. She didn't cry. She just stood there beside her lawyer, pale and expressionless. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she turned and looked at me for the first time since her arrest. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said, her voice low but clear. "Not for getting caught. But for letting it come to this. For becoming someone capable of doing this to you." It wasn't the words she had said before, spoken out of shock at being arrested. These words carried a different weight. Real remorse, perhaps. Or maybe just a belated understanding of the consequences. I didn't respond. I had no words to give. After the trial, Diane Foster found me in the courthouse hallway. "You did the right thing," she said. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you did." "It doesn't feel like a victory," I admitted. "Rarely does. Justice is like that. It doesn't bring peace, only resolution." She was right. I had resolution. The bank accounts were restored. The fraudulent life insurance was cancelled. The house was cleaned and repaired. All the material damage had been fixed. But damage isn't only material. I spent weeks after the trial trying to understand where I had gone wrong as a father. I revisited every memory, every choice, every moment of her childhood. I tried to find the exact point where the sweet girl I knew became the woman who signed a contract to kill me. Thomas came to visit often during those months. He never pressured me, never tried to give easy answers. He just sat with me in silence, sometimes for hours. It was those quiet moments that helped the most. "Have you thought about visiting her?" he asked one afternoon as we had coffee on the porch. "Every day." "But you haven't." I don't know what I'd say. "Maybe you don't need to say anything." I thought about that for weeks. The idea of seeing Jennifer behind bars made me physically ill. But there was also a small persistent part of me that was still a father. That still remembered teaching her to ride a bike, comforting her when her first boyfriend broke up with her, walking her down the aisle at her wedding. The same wedding where I met Patrick for the first time. I should have seen the signs then, the way he looked at things with cold calculation, the way he never seemed genuinely happy, only satisfied when he got what he wanted. But love blinds. Parental love blinds even more. Finally, 3 months after the trial, I went to see her. The prison was a low, gray building surrounded by barbed wire. I went through security, the pat-down, the sterile hallways that smelled of disinfectant and despair. She was sitting on the other side of the glass when I entered. Thinner, dark circles under her eyes, hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked older. Broken. We picked up the phones at the same time. "Hi, Dad." "Hi." A heavy silence. Neither of us knew how to start. "Thank you for coming," she finally said. "I didn't think you would." "I almost didn't." "I understand." She looked at her hands. "How are you?" "Alive. Thanks to myself, not you." She flinched as if slapped. She deserved worse, but I couldn't keep being cruel. It wasn't who I was. "Why?" I asked. The only question that really mattered. Why did it come to this? Jennifer took a deep breath, her eyes welling up. At first, it was just debts. Patrick owed money, lots of money, to dangerous people. He said it would be temporary, that we could handle it. But the more we tried, the worse it got. So the solution was to kill me? It wasn't like that. At least, not at first. She wiped her tears. At first, it was just asking to borrow money. But you didn't have enough. Then Patrick suggested the insurance. Said it was just precaution, in case something happened to you naturally. But nothing was going to happen naturally. I know. I believed him when he said we'd never actually go through with anything. That we only needed the plan as a backup. But the threats got worse. The people Patrick owed started showing up at our house. One of them broke his finger as a warning. She showed her own hand, as if reliving the memory. That's when everything changed. Patrick went into total panic. He said we either got the money or we would die. And I was so scared. So scared of losing everything, of ending up dead in a ditch somewhere. That I agreed. You agreed to try to kill me. I agreed to survive. I know it's not an excuse. I know nothing justifies it. But I was terrified, Dad. And Patrick was so convincing. He said it would be quick, painless, you wouldn't even suffer. As if that made it better. I looked at my daughter through the glass and saw a stranger. Not the girl I raised, but someone shaped by fear, greed, and bad choices. Part of me wanted to scream, to accuse her in every imaginable way. Another part just wanted to cry for the person she used to be. You destroyed our family, I said calmly. For money and fear. You destroyed everything your mother and I built. I know. And now you're going to spend the next 18 years here. Thinking about it. Living with it. I deserve more. Maybe she did. Maybe not. Justice had been served, but it didn't bring the satisfaction I had expected. I'll be honest with you, I said after a long silence. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at you and not see the person who tried to kill me. She nodded, more tears falling. I understand. But you are my daughter. And that doesn't change, no matter what you did. So I will come visit you. Not often. Not at first. But I will come. Because abandoning you completely would make me as cold as you became. Dad. No, I raised my hand. I don't want thanks. I want you to use this time to really think about who you are and who you want to be when you get out. Because you will get out eventually. And when you do, you'll have to live with what you've done for the rest of your life. How do you live with it now? The question caught me off guard. With difficulty, I admitted. I wake up at night thinking about what I could have done differently. I wonder if I was a bad father. If I didn't give you enough attention after your mother died. If I somehow failed you in a way that led you to this path. You didn't fail. I failed. Only me. Maybe. Maybe not. It doesn't matter anymore. I stayed 15 more minutes. We talked about small things, what the prison food was like, if she had made a friend. Trivialities that filled the space between who we used to be and who we had become. When I stood to leave, she placed her hand on the glass. Instinctively, I placed mine on the other side. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just acknowledgement that, despite everything, there was still a connection. Damaged, tortured, but present. I left the prison and drove home in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. Beautiful in a way that made me feel guilty for appreciating it. At home, Thomas was waiting on the porch. How was it? Difficult. Will you go back? Eventually. We sat together, watching the night fall. I said no more, and he respected that. We were just there, two older brothers, survivors of a family storm neither of us had foreseen. I learned something through all of this. I learned that family is no guarantee of loyalty. That love can be corrupted by fear and greed. That the people you trust the most can be the ones who hurt you the most. But I also learned that surviving isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing to live despite betrayal, despite pain, despite everything. My daughter made terrible choices. She will pay for them for a long time. And I will carry these scars for the rest of my life. But I am still here. I still breathe. I still find a reason to see the sun rise each morning. And perhaps in the end, that is the truest justice. Not vengeance. Not retribution. But simply refusing to let darkness win. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones we most need to hear. I survived. And you can too.